If you're looking for which characters to play and the best weapons to use in Naraka Bladepoint, then make sure you stick around because we have a tier list to discuss. Hey everyone, it's OSK. Today I wanted to discuss some hot topics with you guys. I want to discuss what characters I think are the best in the game right now, and what weapons I think are really coming out on top in Naraka Bladepoint's metagame. In today's video, I'll be providing a tier list based on the current characters in the game, the melee weapons, and then the ranged weapons. I will not be ranking the Soul Jays because that would take forever, and also I haven't played with all of them yet, so I really just don't know. Also, quick disclaimer that shouldn't really have to be mentioned, but I will anyway. This tier list is 100% my opinion based on my experiences in-game and also from watching streams of top players. If you disagree on this tier list, and I'm sure some of you will, post in the comments with an argument on why you think what goes where. I don't want to see, you're wrong, trust me bro. Give me an argument and let's have a discussion. Now, if you're ready for that discussion, then let's get right into the release tier lists for Naraka Bladepoint. First and foremost, Kurumi. I'm going to put you in C for right now because they did my girl dirty, man. In beta, she was easily S tier because of her healing abilities and just the amount of heals that she got. To start, I'm going to place her in C. She might move later as I kind of figure out the placements of everybody. But yeah, that's where I'm going to put her right now. For Matari, easily one of the most picked champions. She has a double blink. That's the most used that I've seen, that can get her out of trouble pretty easily. Sometimes it gets eaten up by enemy attacks, but most of the time, if you use her well, she's pretty good. I think I've seen the double blink a little bit more than the returning blink, but in any case, she can also go invisible. Now, if you've ever seen my gameplay clips by watching my previous videos, which you definitely should do, by the way, you can clearly see an outline whenever you're chasing her, and her health bar remains above her invisible body. If she stays completely still, it's a lot different, but most of the time you're not going to have that opportunity, so you're going to be on the run. I would say her invisibility, her ult really just serves to refresh her blinks more than anything, but she can get out of a nasty situation most of the time, especially with the double blink, and then you go invisible and you get another double blink. So with that being said, her movement's just unmatched, and I think she belongs in S tier. I think she is the best, or if not the best, one of the best characters in the game right now. For Tarka G, I haven't really seen much of him, to be honest. I've played against him plenty of times. His main strength comes in the form of his fireball ability, his inner fire, I forget the name of it, and also his ult. Now, his third iteration of his ult increases his attack power. There is a version that does refresh his fireball. I've seen that plenty of times. Basically, his ult just allows him to run away and not get stunned while he's doing it by like a grapple or something. And also it blocks projectiles. It can also burn you, which reduces your healing, and also does damage over time. Also, Tarka can just completely eliminate Kurumi's ult and just set it on fire. So, in fact, I might drop Kurumi a little bit lower. No, I'll keep her in C. But, yeah, just a really, really rough time for Kurumi. And overall, Tarka, if you're really good at core Naraka, you're really going to love this character. I do know that he does have some combos that other characters don't really have access to. I'll leave him be for right now. I might move him later. T-Mulk, same situation as Tarka. I haven't really seen anybody do very well with it. I know that there are certain mechanics in the game that prevent his signature G combo. I just haven't seen it a whole lot, and I haven't seen it a whole lot at top levels of play. So I think he's about where Tarka is. I think maybe even a little bit below him. His ult can easily be gotten out of if you know what you're doing. But yeah, he's definitely still above Kurumi because these two characters can both, with their wind and fire, can really make Kurumi's life very, very hard. So she's still at the bottom, but I think these two are right above Kurumi. Tianhai is... You know what? Tianhai is like in between S and A. I'm not going to make a whole nother tier. T is really, really good. Obviously, if you've been at the receiving end of his Vajra ult, then you know how scary it is whenever you get chain grabbed, and that's pretty much a kill for the most part if the Tianhai knows what he's doing. His Vajra is definitely a menace. Also, his Bell. I haven't really seen anybody, at least at my elo, use it very well, but his Bell will give you frame advantage if you time it well. And also his second version of his Bell, while you cannot use it while being attacked, it's almost like a second counter. And it lasts a whole lot longer. He's definitely a character to be talked about. I might even put him at S just because the Vajra, the other thing about the Vajra is that a lot of players will enter the Vajra and then get out of it very quickly. That way they just heal up, kind of like Kurumi's ult would be, except it's instant. You get that extra defense, and then you power down, and you have that whole health bar to play with. So I've definitely seen players do that before. Overall, I still think Matari is an overall better character than Tianhai. I'm open to be proven wrong on that, but that's kind of how I see it right now. Viper Ning. Viper Ning, she is quite the menace. The most common combo, or the strongest combo I should say, that I see with her is using the silence version of her basic ability into the stun that she has with her ult. Basically, if you land it, it disables your abilities, your ults, your grapple hooks, and then you just, if you don't break line of sight really quickly with your basic movement like sprinting and sliding, then you're going to get stunned for 5 seconds, and basically Viper wins that fight every single time. I really don't see her being as good as Tianhai or being as good as Matari, simply because Tianhai can just grab her out of the ult, and Matari, if you don't have the silence version of that basic ability, which I do think is the best basic ability that she has, then Matari just goes invisible, and then you're toast. Yeah, that's where I'm going to put her. And yeah, I think we'll just finish with that. Now Yodohime, the new character, the one that I have the most fun with. I discovered that her kit's just a little bit busted because her basic ability, her initial basic ability, does have quite a lot of combo potential, especially with the dagger and especially with the spear. That's something that makes her really, 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 really strong if she can get that combo off just from an uppercut. The reason why I think she is A tier and not S tier, I don't think she's S. I think she's very, very high A, above Viper Ning, but I don't think that she's as good as Tianhai or Matari right now. And the reason being is because her basic ability, even though it refreshes on a kill, it's really limiting her because of the cooldown. Now, if you get a quick kill, that's great, but in terms of a 1v1, basically you are saving that basic ability for when you get an uppercut into a combo. And if you can land it, I mean, if you can get them in the air, then it's almost GG. If you play better than the Yodo and you don't get knocked up into the air, then basically that basic ability becomes an escape tool instead of a combo starter. And because here's the thing, her ult is really, really strong, but you can also run away from it. You can, it does not block Viper Ning's ult. It does not block Tianhai's ult. If you're Matari, you can turn invisible and run away. For the most part, she's easy to run away from when she's in her ult, so I don't really consider that a big part of her kit. It's really her basic ability, and it's her combo potential that I think makes her really strong right now. The thing is if you don't get your combo off, then you're just a normal character without a basic ability for the most part, and I think that severely limits her. I think for the most part, Matari gets away from her. I think for the most part, Tianhai can bell her, especially with the normal bell. You can just do it whenever and interrupt the combo. You can turn into a Vajra and render her completely useless. You can also just grab her out of her ult. For those two characters, I think that she does rank below Matari and for Tianhai. In solo queue, go crazy with Yodo because you can knock people up and it's just GG. But against top players, I think that Yodo is going to be very high A tier. I don't think she makes it into S. I think this is my final list. Feel free to disagree with me in the comments. And yeah, we're going to move on to weapons. Moving on to melee weapons, we're going to start with our beautiful crate weapon that we got on release, the Blood Ripper. This thing goes in C. Basically, you run forward and you activate it. It's a lot better in trios, but in terms of a solo tier list, I think that the Blood Ripper belongs in C. Basically, there's a lot of ways to get around it. You can separate yourself out and shoot with a bow. You can also, you can't counter it, but you can play around it quite well. If you have a long sword, for example, you can toss out your little charge slash or your wind slash. Overall, you can just outmaneuver it. And I think anyone who's good enough knows that. Blood Ripper, I think, solidly belongs in C tier. Now, the dagger is an easy S. If you want a reason, just check my dagger video. There's a lot of combos you can do with it. There's even a repeatable combo where you can just jump in the air and stab like multiple times and just continually knock down your opponent. It's absolutely ridiculous. The dagger dash is a wonderful mechanic that is so powerful. Golden focus off of a dash, just, you're so fast. The dagger's just insane. I mean, it has, most combos in Naraka are done off of an uppercut and knocking your opponent up. This thing has an uppercut. It also has a focus attack uppercut. And if you find the Soul J with the dagger, it's just GG, man. Now, the Great Sword, The greatsword is a weird one. So it is, it's a very gimmicky weapon. If you've ever played against it, you know what I'm talking about. Basic attacks, as you're starting to swing it, will block other weapons' basic attacks. It can be quite obnoxious. The only caveat is that after that first little basic attack, you automatically go into a focus attack, and everybody that's good knows it, so you're probably going to get countered. There are different combos you can do, like the one I showed off with Yodo, where you can hit with a basic, jump, hit with another basic, knock up, and then do all this crazy stuff. For the most part, you're using it to mix up your opponent. Overall, I just don't really see it being any better than the other weapons, because the other weapons are a lot faster. Greatsword people can see from a mile away, and they're always ready to counter that focus attack. So I think B is where it solidly belongs. Now, the other weapons, I think, are gonna all belong in A tier. I genuinely think this is where they belong, with maybe the exception of the katana being a high B or a low A. I think it's behind the longsword, but for the most part, I think this is the correct ordering. So starting with the spear here, and the spear is pretty comboable. You still have your counter into the Dragon Slayer. You still have just Dragon Slayer setups. You have aerial combos with it, and it has the longest range of any weapon. In terms of just, you know, reach, spear still has everything beat, still combos into itself pretty well, and I think it belongs solidly high A tier. Now, longsword is kind of broken in its own way, but it's not broken enough to be with the dagger. Basically, it's a little wind slash, focus slash, whatever. Can be countered, but it's not the same way the other weapons are countered. You'll get countered with the wind slash. It'll come back to you. It does about, I think it's 50 or 60% less damage than a normal counter. But here's the catch. You can actually dash out of the way of that wind slash and just not get hit at all, not be disarmed, not do anything. So it's kind of broken in its own way if you just spam your wind slash. For the most part, it's slower than other weapons. It definitely has the lowest combo potential out of every weapon that we have here, I think, minus maybe the, of course, the Blood Ripper doesn't have any combos. It just run forward and stab. And the Greatsword is really, really slow, but that's not really... Combos aren't really its gimmick for the most part. Longsword, it doesn't really combo that well with most scenarios, but it's very good at controlling the pace of the fight. It's very good at tech chases, especially. I think it belongs right behind Spear or right with Spear in high A tier. Now, Katana is a little bit faster than the Longsword. It doesn't have that long of a reach. Its focus attack does not knock you down. The way I see the Katana, it's very good at following tech chases. It's very good at playing mind games with your opponent. You can hold a katana after a person's counter very, very well and just make it to where they almost don't even have a counter option against your focus attacks. That's its main draw. Overall, I still think Longsword beats it out because it does a better job with you know, not being able to be countered. It's longer range. You can do pretty much the same things a katana can do, except maybe a little bit better with the Longsword. So overall, Katana, I'll put it in mid to low A. So yeah, there you go, your melee tier list. All right, now we get into ranged weapons. To start, let's get the elephant out of the room. The Flamebringer is technically a ranged weapon, even though you stand really close to your opponent whenever you use it. It doesn't have the same properties as a melee weapon, so I've included it in the ranged weapons. And to start, this thing goes in D because, for one thing, I never use it, and there's a reason for that, and I don't think it's very good, because you're close enough to be hit by a melee weapon, and then where do you go from there? Pretty much nowhere, so D tier. There you go. The Swarm, I'll go ahead and say in C. Damage is huge. You can't really move whenever you use it. I would say it's better in trios whenever the enemy team is distracted. But in terms of a solo environment, not very good. So C tier it goes. Now we'll start in the regular order here. The bow, I would say, is now in A tier. Whenever it was in beta, I would say it's easily S tier just due to the amount of damage you can get. Nowadays, headshots don't really do as much damage, so they're not really as effective. So I will be placing it in A. I still think you can get a lot of damage out of it, just not as much as, say, our next weapon, the musket. Musket is S tier now. The bullet velocity was increased just a little bit, and the damage still really, really good. So if you're good at, you know, point and click and slightly leading your shots, I've landed some crazy shots. You've seen the clip that I shared in the combat guide, where Falcon is just hammering this dude while jumping in the air, hitting headshots. It's crazy. Musket is definitely, I would say, the best ranged weapon in the meta right now. Now, the pistol is a bit of a weird one. It has a ton of damage, and I mean a ton of damage. Ah, man, this is really hard. I'm tempted to just put it in S, because at mid to close range, that damage is really, really high. Like really, really high. Especially if you charge it a little bit, you can nail a headshot, get half the total health pull down, and from there it's just some quick slashes with your melee weapon, and the fight's over. That pistol is very highly damaging, like very high. I think honestly it probably belongs in S tier along with the musket. Mid to close range, I know it's not like a sniper per se, but like holy crap, yeah, it's a lot. Also, pistol's more of a shotgun. Can we just agree on that? Thank you. The cannon, about where the swarm is, I would say it's in C tier. If I can place, there we go. It is in front of the swarm in my opinion, just because it's more mobile. And it does do decently well whenever there's multiple enemies in the vicinity. The only thing is that the trajectory is really slow. You have to compensate for the drop quite a lot, and most of the time you're wanting to look for other weapons other than the cannon. So I think it belongs in C tier. Still better than the Flamebringer, a little bit better than the Swarm. I think C is where I'll put it for now. The Repeater, I want to put up in A along with the bow. I actually want to put it ahead of the bow. I think that it is a really, really good weapon, especially if you want to finish off a fight after you've knocked down quite a lot of health. If they're trying to flee, you can just pop out the Repeater and down they go. You can also use it to lead into a fight. You have to be really good at tracking and able to do it, and also leading your shots. But if you're really good at your typical shooter, then you're going to feel right at home with the Repeater. I don't think it's as good as the burst potential from the musket or the pistol. But I think it is better than the bow. So I think A tier is where it belongs. Now we have this weird looking tier list. I'm gonna bump cannon up to B. Not really because it'll look better, but it is better than the swarm, definitely. It's definitely worse than the rest of these. So yeah, I think this is where I'll leave it. You got musket and the pistol at S. You got repeater and the bow at A. Those are the only four that matter. The rest, B, C, and D. And that is going to do it for my tier list, mostly a solo tier list, but one nonetheless. Please let me know what you guys think. Obviously, I don't know everything, but this is my honest interpretation of the meta so far. If you disagree, then respectfully let me know in the comments. I'd be more than happy to talk with you. Other than that, if you guys enjoyed, please leave a like on the video and subscribe. If you think I'm dumber than a box of rocks, leave a dislike. And some quick announcements before we go. I'm going to try and keep a consistent upload schedule of Sundays, Tuesdays, and Thursdays, all Naraka content, of course, so 3 times a week. And I also might even be throwing in streams on the weekends here on YouTube, so watch out for that and follow me on Twitter for updates. I'm also going to be involved with the Naraka League org as both a caster and content manager, so if you'd like to check them out, I have a link in the description to our Discord server. It is a competitive Discord server that will be putting on tournaments for Naraka, so definitely check it out if you're interested. Other than that, guys, that's going to do it for me. I've been OSK. You'll have a great day, and I'll see you in the next one.